Hi, everybody. I'm Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. This week, we're talking about some really cool books. If you haven't had a chance to pick them up and read them, you really should. And I want to pry his brain on his final one, but we can't talk about it. We'll have him back on next year for that one. But Todd Smith joins us coming up.
Yep, this is Dawn of Sports. She's Dawn Mitchell from Fox 9. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. This is TalkNorth.com. Best way to listen to this show or any show you like at the network. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's the easiest way to listen. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We want to thank Aquarius Home Services and Minnesota Masonic Charities. And glad to have Todd here. We've already had a great conversation off the air. I think you're going to enjoy this. Back to you, Dawn.
You know, first of all, Jim, I just want to say it's so good to see you in person.
Good to see you in person,
spiffy
too.
With your sweater and your
Well,
your
I'm
top.
waiting for Timberwolves news. So I might be going to somebody's office and talking about breaking Timberwolves news at any moment, but I don't know when it's going to happen. So.
Right. Well, not that you don't look good normally.
I normally do not look good, and I don't really look that good now, but at least I put a coat of paint on.
Well, our guest today is Todd Smith, and Todd and I met a long time ago, it seems like now. If you haven't read his books, I really think you should go grab them, because we're going to start first with one where, Todd, you and I joked around that living in, I won't give away our neighborhood where we live in Minneapolis, but just Minneapolis, Minnesota, around this area, you just swing a bat, swing anything, and you hit a former NHL player.
Yeah.
You know, hi, Sean Podine, walking down the aisles of the grocery store.
Yeah.
Hockey Strong is your very first book that you wrote, and I love it. I mean, there's so many stories in there, but when you first said, hey, I'm going to write a book, I've never done it before.
Sure.
Was this the obvious one for you, or what was the genesis of it?
So I was working for the Minnesota Wild as basically a freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
I was hired by Chris Snow.
Yes.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. I love him.
Chris brought me on board because I actually had interviewed to become a beat writer for the Minnesota Wild. And because they wanted somebody to cover the team for the website like daily. And I knew that I wouldn't be good at that job. And so I did the opposite. I pulled the Costanza and I I interviewed with Chris. And he loved my writing, and he wanted to,
because he was a former writer anyway,
he was
right?
like
so he
one of
knew
the
his
best.
stuff, right?
Yeah. So he covered the Red Sox for the Boston Globe.
Mm-hmm.
And so
he covered the Wild for the Star Tribune.
That's right.
And so he wanted to bring me on board. So I interviewed for this job, and I knew I wasn't going to be good at it because honestly, I had never worked on a beat before, the deadlines and all that kind of stuff. But what I wanted to do, which I explained to Chris, and he understood it, I wanted to write, like I grew up in the golden age of Sports Illustrated. And all the great newspaper columnists. Suhan is one of those people.
Oh, stop.
And
You're blushing.
Yeah. And so for the Boston Globe, like Bob Ryan, and then
Lee Montville.
Yep. And then like at the LA Times, you had Jim Murray. And so I studied all of those great newspaper columnists. And they had like a little more heart to it, a little more creativity than the actual beat writing. And so shockingly, I didn't get the beat job in the interview at the Minnesota Wild boardroom when I told them that
you don't like deadlines.
I
don't like
be
to
good
go
at
every
this
day.
job. It was great. And so a year later, Chris brought me on board and to write these more creative column-like pieces. And so one of those stories came out of my own experience when I was shaving. Like I have a scar in the middle of my beard here that's from like, a 12-stitch cut from actually playing hockey. And I grew up in a hockey household. My dad is a Hall of Fame trainer. He was with the Gophers in the 70s and then the 1980 Miracle Team. And then he was with the Flyers and then he was with the Moose. So I just grew up as a hockey player. And in hockey, the culture of playing in pain is ingrained into the sport more so than any other sport. It's like, if you're going to play hockey, you're going to accept the fact that you're going to have to play in pain at some point. And it's accepted, but it's not accepted in other sports to that degree. And so before I started like writing this story, I just wanted to kick the tires on the story to see if I could get to it. Because hockey players are notorious for not talking about their injuries. It's like a code of silence almost.
I'm good.
Yeah, we're good.
Good.
The whole upper body, lower body thing. And so I was in the Wild locker room and I went up to Charlie Coyle and I was like, hey, what is your best, worst injury? And without skipping a beat, he just was like, oh, I separated both shoulders and I couldn't lift my arms. So I looked like a rod hockey player because they were like, they pinned his arms down.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
And then he goes, and that's when I also got hit in the mouth by that Suter snapshot. And so he had this huge
I
cut.
remember
It was
that.
against Chicago in the playoffs.
Yeah, he looked like Frankenstein,
Yes.
right? When he got all stitched up.
Yeah. And I thought that's what he was going to talk about, but he
Yeah.
actually was like, oh, nobody knew I had two separated shoulders. And so I was like, huh. And then I moved like a couple stalls over and Parisi was there. And I was like, what's your best?
This is
worst
my
injury?"
favorite.
And then
This
he was
is my
like,
favorite.
oh, I had a root canal. And I was like, what? I didn't understand. He's like, oh, I had a root canal during a game. And I was like, what? I go, where? Like, then I thought, did you leave the arena? He's like, no, there's a dental office in every NHL arena.
Of course there is.
Yeah. And I was like, okay.
That's my favorite.
And then he goes, oh, but it was really easy because it was a clean break. And I go, what do you mean? He's like, the tooth came all the way out and the nerve was sticking straight up. So they just could yank out the nerve. And I go, where were you? And he was like, oh, I was in the chair. And he kind of laughed. He said, I took off my upper pads. So he was in his skates.
And they found his tooth,
And they
didn't
found his
they?
tooth,
On
and
the
he-
ice.
and
I
he-
remember that.
Yeah. And he goes, oh, if you look at the footage, I started the second period.
Yeah.
And so I watched the tape and there he is at the faceoff and he's going like this. You know, he's like sticking his tongue through. You're like, this is not normal.
No.
But then I realized my childhood wasn't normal either. So I wrote that story. And then someone told me, you should turn that into a book. And I was
Wow.
like, oh, I'll think about it. But this is a long story to your short question that was like,
Like,
how-
I have to write this.
how do you write a book? And so I was like, okay, I just Googled how to write a book. And I realized that every book starts with a book proposal. So when you go into any bookstore, every book there had started at one point as an idea
Uh-huh.
and then a book proposal. And the book proposal is a business plan for the book, meaning who's going to buy it, what it's about, where they're going to buy it. It's basically a business plan for a book. And the first thing you have to write is in essence, the back of the book, the
Yes.
description
Uh-huh.
is your overview at the top of the book proposal. And so a lot of editors and agencies and stuff get flooded with these. And so if they'll just read the overview, and if it's not good, it goes to
Right.
the
It's like
slush.
the hook, right?
Yeah,
If
it's
you
the
don't hook
hook.
me in, right?
And so I wrote this story, then I wrote the book proposal, and then Simon and Schuster was approached, and they wanted in on this, but they were like, we need more from Todd to see a sample chapter. And so I reached into, my ace of cards, and I called Sean Podine. And Sean Podine lives in our neighborhood. And he said, yeah, come over. I'll just light a fire in the backyard. And Sean Podine's career was something out of like a Coen Brothers movie where it was slapstick and gritty and funny and ridiculous all at the same time. So he's just telling me all this stuff. And we're in his backyard and around the fire. And so I cobbled together that chapter. And so I write it. Now that chapter goes in with the book proposal, and it went to the editor who wanted to buy it had an assistant. So my proposal with the chapter goes to the assistant first. So he reads it. It turns out that the assistant is from Denver, the biggest Avalanche fan. the biggest Podine fan.
Stop.
Yes. So he takes this and he tells the editor, you have to buy this. Because he's like, no one's ever going to write a chapter about Sean Podine and all these other characters in the NHL. And so that is literally how those things are connected for me to get that first
It was
book.
meant to. Wow. It was meant to be.
Yeah. I mean, the odds of the Avs fan getting the Podine, and I mean, everybody loves Sean Podine, but he's very like,
he's a cult figure.
He's a cult figure. Yeah. So that's how that happened.
Wow.
So it was amazing. It happened from when, so my dad was working in Philly at the time with the Flyers. This was during the Lindros years. And so at our house, it was now, my brother was in college. So it was me and my sister and my mom. And I was playing hockey in high school. And I just got absolutely lit up. And by a guy that was like twice my size. I had a really bad concussion. That's where I got the scar. Then I had scars in my eyebrows and stuff because the mask, the screws from the mask, like went right in. And so my mom picked me up at school and I was like really out of shape. And I'll always remember this. I remember my dad like trying to diagnose the concussion over the phone. And he was in Philly and my mom had the light like in my eyes and I could hear my dad talking. And then he eventually said, you got to take him in, right? And then that's how I got stitched up and all that stuff. And so if you project forward from that moment and it becomes a book with Simon Schuster's one of the biggest publishers like in America, not the world, but like the story. Yeah, it's remarkable. Yeah.
What a crazy childhood you must have had too, because my dad was just with the Olympic team and all these NHL teams. I mean, as a kid, you were surrounded by greatness probably before you even knew it.
Oh, 100%. Like I grew up, it was the single greatest like scenario. It was like bring your child to work day. Right. And because I was just like obsessed with sports.
And you wouldn't leave.
And I wouldn't leave. And I would just go. And it was good for my mom too, because she'd just be like, oh,
take Todd.
Take Todd. Todd's going with you. And so my dad was like everywhere with sports and I would just tag along. And in fact, my life, when I look back upon it, it's like, that's just how it was. But it's remarkable now because a week ago, I was at the Gopher hockey game, Gopher Badger, right? Between periods, and Dave Snuggerud walks by. And I was like, hey, Snuggy. And he was like, oh, hey, Smitty's kid.
Yeah.
And then he like stopped, we chatted. And then Snuggy goes, hey, do you remember that time at your house when your dad had me moving furniture? And I was like, I do. And I completely forgot about it. And and Snuggy was like, yeah. And he was like, do your parents still have that hutch that we were moving? And so little slice of childhood, I remember coming in the back door, going around into the living room, and there was Snuggy, who had like, he was like my favorite Gopher.
Hilarious.
He just had the lion's mane of hockey hair. And I was like, Snuggy's moving furniture with my dad. Right?
The world of the bizarro.
Yeah. And so in the 80 Olympic team, I mean the Miracle on Ice team, for my dad to be a part of that, he'll be the first one to tell you that like none of them expected that to happen. And it was like, he went into the unknown and then it became like arguably the greatest, moment in American sports history. And so there's all these photos of the Olympians in our house, right? Like Rob McClanahan on the couch and all this stuff. And that's just how I grew up. But I think like my kitchen table, like growing up, I think that was like the incubator for my career as a writer. I learned how to tell a story in that setting, and the cadence of it, and how to hit your marks and all that stuff with the salty and the sweet. Like looking back upon that now, I'm like, oh yeah, that's where it started. Because I graduated from the University of Montana in Missoula, but I don't have a degree in English, journalism, or creative writing. So I taught myself how to write in the manner in which I would tell the stories verbally. And that came from that childhood of just listening to my dad, tell the stories and stuff. And when he was in Philly, I would go out there, on school breaks and stuff. And there was a moment, Philly hosted the All-Star game. And there was a moment when I was in the training room with Patrick Waugh, Mario Lemieux, and Ray Bork. And they were all speaking French to each other. Mm-hmm. And I was probably like 19. And that's not normal. I mean, you have the greatest of their generation all in one room. And my dad's like working on them and stuff. And I was just sitting there, just taking it all in. Yeah. So it was a remarkable childhood. So.
That's great stuff. I want to hear more. We want to let you know we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio, and we want to thank Aquarius Home Services. We'd also like to thank Minnesota Masonic Charities.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. I am happy that Minnesota Masonic Charities has chosen Minnesota Bound and this podcast as a place to help spread the word. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come.
As for Natrium, hey, go to a Natrium or a wildflower shop near you, or go to natrium.com. Check out what they have. Today, I'm going to tell you about their balms. If you have something sore on your body, they help. They're antifungal, anti-infectious, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory. They help with muscle pain. They help with arthritis and tendonitis. They can give you pain relief within 15 minutes. You apply them 3 times a day. They smell good. They feel good. You have the Natrium brand. Very few ingredients. It's healthy stuff. It actually smells good. Highly recommend that. Also check out the oil for happy guts, but you also might just go to a Natrium shop or a wildflower shop and find something that just helps you have fun at night without any chance of a hangover. The drinks, balms, dips, candies, gummies, etc. Go to a shop, talk to the sales professional. They're able to guide you much better than I will, and it's worth the trip. And I would like to highlight one of our newer sponsors across the TalkNorth.com platform, Giggly THC Beverages, Giggly, Gigli. If you want to get a deal, you can get 50% off by using the promo code Giggly North, Gigli North. That'll get you 50% off. My wife and I have been drinking a lot of this stuff. It's really nice to have something that gives you a little kick at night with no chance of a hangover, all natural ingredients. It's really good stuff. I highly recommend it. Also a reminder, if you like this show and you like hockey talk, you're going to want to listen to Russo's show, Worst Seats in the House. You're going to want to listen to Kevin Gorg's show. Kevin does great work with his stuff. We have the Bar Down Beauties on hockey. Also, we have John Krasinski on the Timberwolves, Jeff Diamond on the Vikings, Michael Grimm on the Gophers, Randy Shaver on high school football and other things, Roy Smalley, Lavelle O'Neill, myself on baseball and the Chin Music Show, Jeff Diamond on the Vikings, John Millay on Preps. Thanks for listening. We do appreciate it. Back to Dawn.
I was going to say, wow. And Alex, you work on all the shows, right? Our producer,
Alex Haugen is our producer. I should have introduced him earlier. My bad. Sometimes I forget.
The kid that never sleeps. Yeah, that's right. Todd, you were, as you were talking there and you start saying, Jim and I have talked about this, how it is our job, but you find yourself in special moments. Mm-hmm. And when you said Mario Lemieux and Ray Bork, and this is going a little bit back, but I was behind the scenes before I was ever in front of a camera. I would be stage managing. And that's when the Hartford Whalers also were still in town, the Whale.
Yeah.
So I would work for ESPN, Nesson, and then RDS, which is Montreal, Rue de Sport, right? Mm-hmm. So I knew very little French, like a tiny, tiny bit. Yeah. But they're like, hey, can you go down and cover, it must have been the Penguins, obviously, Penguins and the Whale. And I'm like, sure. So I would drive myself down from Boston. And first of all, I remember Mario Lemieux is the tallest giant on skates,
Yes.
right? Because he's already 6'6"
Yes.
without it, right? And then you put skates on it. And I just remember thinking he was so beautiful too. And he was so tall. And he's coming down on the rubber mat, right?
Yeah.
And he's walking. And so he's coming in to do an interview. And I'm working for RDS. I do not know French. So I'm on the headsets. Everything's in French, that, but I knew what I was doing,
Sure.
right? And every once in a while, the director or someone in broken English would be like, can you make him up, Don? So I'd mic him up, and do all this stuff. But just to be in that same room.
Yeah.
And then, how he could switch so easily from French to English to this, to that, he could tell, I was English. He could tell he was speaking. And just having those moments like, wow, I can't even explain this to my friends when I'm going to go out for lunch on brunch,
Right.
Especially some of my girlfriends would be like, well, I don't even know hockey. Who's Mario Kart?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, Lemieux.
Yeah. I mean, the ridiculousness of, I think, my life in general, of these moments when I found myself, I got the job of writing, co-authoring a memoir with Jessie Diggins, the Olympian. So she won the gold in 2018, and I applied for that job just like everybody else would. And there was like national sports writers that wanted it, people that understood cross-country skiing and everything, and I don't, right? And so
I was always wondering how that came.
Yeah, like all the vernacular of it and how the season works and all that kind of stuff. And I found myself applying for that job. And like I did with the Wild, where I just did the opposite of what you normally would do, when my submission went in, so I had my CV and my writing samples, and all my samples went in, and none of them were about sports. And they were all, because I was a magazine columnist for Metro Magazine, and then for Minnesota Monthly. And so all of those columns that I sent in were human interest stories about like my son's heart surgery, or about the fact of like working for a living and writing. And there were very heartfelt stories. And so that's what I submitted, because I knew everybody else would be submitting sports stories. And so I made it to the final round of interviews with Jessie. And so the final interview was at Jessie's parents' house that she grew up in Afton. And so I got out there, and that was the moment where I was like, this is ridiculous, because Jessie's dad is giving me a tour of the property, right? And we come around the house, and Jessie Diggins' dad is like, hey, you a hunter? And I was like, no, I'm not. And he's like, oh, do you eat moose meat? And I was like, what now? And he goes, you ever had moose? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he's like, oh, you got to come back from my moose meat chili. And I was like, this is so ridiculous, right? Like that, I'm even here.
You're getting like, you're kissing the ring at that point, right?
And it was like, oh God. So then I like had to write like a sample chapter with Jessie, and she really, really liked it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the interview, and there was some other people in the running for this job. And so at the end of the interview, I found myself sitting at the dining room table in the Diggins house with Jessie. And then she kind of paused, and this was kind of the last sequence of the interview. And she was like, I was waiting to reveal something about myself till after I retired. And I was like, okay. And she's like, but I think the book could be a good way to reveal something about me that the world doesn't know. So I was like, okay. And I just like let it play out. And she's like, Jessie was like, I was wondering if you would be, willing to help me in that journey to reveal something super personal, still not revealing it. And so I was like 100%. And that's when I said, well, that's why my stories were human interest stories and they were columns, because this is only partly a sports story. And she's like, okay. And then she said, I'm bulimic. And she said it in active terms. She said, I'm bulimic. And would you be willing to reveal this to the world? And I was like, well, stepping back, not as a writer, but it's just as a parent and as an uncle to two nieces. I was like, we have the potential to help thousands of people if you reveal that you have an eating disorder. And I said, that alone is worth it. I was like, if we help one person, it's worth it. And then she was like, okay, I think I'd like to do that. And I was like, okay. And then I eventually got the job. And so now it gets really ridiculous where I don't know how to do this. So I don't know how to co-author a book. Like, keep in mind, again, I don't have a degree in this.
Right.
And so I reach out to a few people that know how to do this. And so I'm like, how do I do this? And they kind of walk me through some scenarios. And so then I come up with a plan, and Jessie's like, I train in Vermont in the summer. So I want you to come out to Vermont and we can do the interviews in Vermont for over 2 weeks. And she's like, and I want you to train with me in the team so you can get a real feel. And I was like, okay, time out.
Yeah.
I'm like late 40s and I could barely jog around Lake Harriet. Right. So I'm like, I'm going to die if I do this. And so Jessie's like, no, it'll be fine. So to conduct the interviews.
Famous last words.
Yeah. To conduct the interviews, like I realized that Jessie's like so type A that I had to Google search like how to work with somebody that's type A. And so one of the tricks that I did is I sent her all the questions ahead of time. So I came up with all the chapters in the blueprint and the narrative that I wanted to go with for each chapter with all the questions in a sequence because I know that she would answer all of the questions. So when I arrived, she would be all prepared, right? And then it could be just like this, just people talking, right? And we're both following a blueprint and then the organic stuff would come with it. And so I fly to Stratton, Vermont, okay, which is like a downhill ski town, like Vail, something like that. And so I drive my rental car into this small Vermont village, and I didn't know what was going on, but there was probably on a scale of like 1,000 to 2,000 people doing yoga all over in the open. On the hills, in the parking lots, these yogas were everywhere. And I haven't seen like that many like man buns in one setting. I mean, it was ridiculous.
And they're yogis.
Yogis.
Okay.
And I just thought no one would believe this, right? No one would believe this. And
that's so funny.
So I park my car at this hotel and then I'm in the lobby and Jessie comes over to get me. Jessie walks right into the middle of this yoga festival and she's wearing like Zubas and like a ratty hoodie, right? She walks right through this and she's like, hey, you made it. And I was like, how come you didn't tell me that there was a yoga festival called Wanderlust happening in the town? And so it was just ridiculous. Like you couldn't make this up, right? And so we walk from the hotel back to her condo and it's on like a wooded trail. And like, I would say 20 yards ahead of me, we hear this loud crash in the woods and it's a black bear.
Oh my God.
And it just shoots across the trail. And Jessie's standing in front of me and she's like, that bear is going towards the parking lot where there's a group of yogis. And so Jessie Diggins just bolts behind the bear. And she's yelling as loud as she can, bear, bear, bear. And all these yogas just start scattering. And then I'm standing there on the trail like, what is going on? What am I going to do? I have a book bag on me and a digital recorder and notebooks. Like, what am I going to do?
You could insult the bear.
I could write a description of the bear. Oh, and then,
by the way, I've heard that yogis make a really nice midday snack for certain species.
Yeah.
It's like fish in a barrel at that point with that many.
It tastes like granola.
Crunchy
granola.
chicken.
Yeah. And then Jessie walks back and she's like, can you believe that? That's crazy.
Did she scare the bear away?
Yeah. And she was like, so like baseline normal about it. And I was like, what is going on? And again, I'm like, this is so ridiculous. Like no one would believe this. Right. And then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm still thinking like, I don't know how to do this. Like, we'll figure it out. So we get to her condo and I'm like, so I suggest the chapter we start out with is like your childhood or, a training schedule or whatever. And she's like, no, bulimia first. And I was like, I don't know. It's a big rock to push right away. And then Jessie was like, we go biggest loads first. Like you get through the hard stuff and everything else is gravy.
Big rocks in first.
Yeah. And so for the next 3 hours, she told me like every detail of it. And I think I actually know outside of her immediate family, this was the first time.
Yeah.
And outside of the people at the Emily program where she was treated, that every detail happened like this, she told me. And so she was saying this, the demons she was giving air to these demons inside her. And there was a certain amount of release in that. And you could tell because I asked her, like, where was the first time that you threw up? And she was like, it was this gas station. She knew every detail of it. Wow. And so it was super powerful. Right. And so after that 3-hour interview, and I will openly admit, like I was crying and she was crying and it was just really, really hard to hear. And then after that, it did get progressively easier for her, because she had all the notes there and everything. And then in between the interview sessions, she's training like 2 to 3 times a day, right? And so in between the trainings, I would go in to do the interviews and stuff, but she would make me go train with them. So I was often on her bike riding behind so there was part of the Olympic team and then the NCAA champions were also training with her. So it was a sport they were lifting up the people that are coming next, right? And I would be the caboose in this chain.
How far back?
And they're on roller skis, right?
Right.
And they're, digging in the whole thing. And there was several times that I tapped out. But there was one moment where I rode on a bike like uphill for 9 minutes. And I was just dying. And I was doing that old trick as a kid where you do switchbacks.
Yeah.
I was doing the sidewinder up the hill. And then it finally plateaued. And I mean, at this time, like the Fitbit was like hot. It was like you're going to die. And then all the Olympians at the plateau were like, you did so great. We're so proud of you. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. They were all laughing about it, saying, you lasted longer than we thought,
What did training like that, even though you might not have done what they could do, what did that teach you for your writing? Did it give you more, I hate to say empathy, but did it bring you in a little bit more?
It did. Like I had a real hard look into Jessie Diggins' warm-up session was the full workout for all the pro athletes that I had grown up with.
Wow.
Her
warm-up.
Her warm-up was an hour and a half, and it was so intense. And then they moved into the actual training. And to the point where one of her warm-ups was on an exercise bike.
Yeah.
And I was next to her on the exercise bike, and I was dying. Right? We were like 45 minutes in and she was buying a condo in Boston on her phone. She was sitting up and just hammering out keys. And I was ready to throw up. And that was like, it just gave me a look into like modern sports as a different animal. So when my dad was in hockey and stuff growing up, and you'd have a player, right, that would like be kind of slow at practice, right? And the coach would come over, somebody would come over to my dad, say, what's up with 27? And they would say, is he sick? Is he hurt? Or does he have the Budweiser flu? And so that was a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's just a different element in modern sports. And Jessie's a perfect example of that, where it's like a mind, body, spiritual quest. And she lives like I equate it to like a samurai, right? Where everything in her life is dedicated to this one thing. It's like a craft, right? And she's so humble that she would often say, well, yeah, you could do this if this is all you had to do. And I'm like, no,
Nope.
no,
That's
it's not
still
the
a
same.
no.
It's not the same. But the reason how I could relate to it in terms of the writing was, so I work full time. I work a full-time job. I work for a landscape company. And I write books on the side. And so the discipline it takes to do those two things is just, for me, what, like, you have to be. I understand that I'm not the best writer. I understand I'm not the most educated writer, but my discipline can be the X factor, right? Like, no one will outwork me. That's how this just goes for me. And so I spent all last summer working 40 to 60 hours a week and then writing my new book at night.
Wow.
And then on the weekends, I would have 2 days off and I would put 6-hour shifts in each day. And so my wife refers to this condition as the writer's widow because I just, like, you just have to go into that zone.
Dive in, right?
And Jessie would refer to it as the pain cave, right? The pain cave. And so it's your ability to withstand pain and get comfortable with it. So you can maintain, you can accomplish everything if your pain threshold equates to your work effort. And so, that's what I like. It made sense to me. Like, Jessie Diggins made sense to me. As crazy as it was, that the discipline it takes, I could understand that from a fundamental level.
Yeah, I remember you so graciously got me in touch when I had you on our show.
Yeah.
And Jessie was on there as well. And what I could see between the two of you is trust.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have to be the most educated. You don't have to go to the blah, blah, blah. If someone trusts you with their story, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Sean Podine trusted you. And if you think about it on even a different level, Hockey Strong was all about physical, enduring the pain.
Yeah.
And Jessie brought out, it's physical, but it can also be emotional. It can also be, on a whole different human level.
Yeah.
And so kudos to you for that, because some people, no matter how hard they try, can't get to that level with an athlete or with a subject of their books.
Yeah. There's just a certain level of humility with, like, working a day job and writing. So Jessie and I just made sense to each other. We could kind of see each other's path. For writing, and Suhan can tell you probably more than me, but the landscape of print journalism has changed dramatically.
Completely.
Yeah. Where there's, like, the money is lower, the opportunities are lower, and with newspapers or magazines and everything. And sometimes, like, the writers that make it are the ones that can withstand the most pain, most rejection, and the most dirt that they have to eat. And I think that is very much the case with me. That I was working in magazines when it was awesome. And then I was, doing the online stuff, and it just kept progressively going lower, the money and all that stuff. And then I finally just kind of stumbled my way into books. And then, and you get a certain amount of rejection with the books as well. The slush pile and all that stuff. But I've been very fortunate that my threshold for pain can sometimes match Jessie's.
I'll just say one thing about, like, the education level and experience, all that stuff. I mean, I went to University of Missouri journalism school, supposedly one of the best, if not the best, one of the top 3-5, depending on who you listen to. You know what? 99% of what I learned about journalism and writing had nothing to do with journalism school. You know, you can go to the best journalism school. You still got to go do it. Royce doesn't have an English degree or a journalism degree, and he's a great writer. You know, there's so many different paths to becoming a good writer or a good reporter. That it's going to a journalism school should teach you about journalism ethics. And if you use it correctly, it should give you some contacts to get your career started, which I didn't use any of, which was probably a stupid mistake of mine. But so, you know, you don't have to make any excuses for yourself about education level or experience. There are great writers who never went to school. There are horrifying writers who went to the best journalism schools.
Yeah. I went through an experience recently where I had an agent that procured two of my first two books.
Mm-hmm.
And for my third book, I had ambitions, as we talked about earlier. What I went through was a big project, and I kind of wanted something more for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to settle, and I wanted to kind of push my way, you know, into that. And so I had to go get a new agent, and that was just nothing but rejections, and all across the board. Even having two books, nobody would return it. And then randomly on a Sunday night, I got two hits, and both agents in New York asked for interviews. And so the first guy that I interviewed, he asked me a question that I couldn't answer. And I kind of bombed the interview. And but what it did, it taught me, I was like, I need to answer that question. And so 24 hours later, I had my second interview with the other agent, who oddly, this is how the world works, asked me the same question. And so this time I nailed it and I prepared for it. And there was something that I could feel like I just pushed all the chips in, where I was like, this is it for me. And I told the agent in New York at this time that I was at my day job. I was like, I'm talking to you from a room full of shovels. And he was like, what? He had no context. He was like, what do you mean? I said, I work for a landscape company and we have a storage room. The code name is the panic room. It's filled with shovels on racks. And I set my chair up in there because it's the only place that no one will bother me. And he was like, who are you? And I was like, I'm Todd Smith. And he was like, but what are you doing? You know? And then in that conversation, I let this agent in New York, I let him know. I was like, next weekend, I'm driving to Chicago to interview a bass player and the drummer for one of the UK's biggest bands. They headline Glastonbury. And I'm going to interview them because they're massive English football fans. And I was like, I want to talk to them. I don't want to talk to the pundits. I want to talk to the people in the streets. And I approached the band's management and said, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And they were like, yeah, come to Chicago. No problem. And the agent was like, is the band Idols? And I was like, yes. And he was like, who are you? And so it became a thing where it's like sometimes the guy that's still in there, still grinding and taking those shots that nobody, I got so many rejections and all of a sudden I got two in a row and I was like, well, let's just keep this rolling. Yeah.
Well, before we wrap this up, I want to know what that question was that you bombed the first time and you knew the second time. If you could share it. What was that question?
I will. It's so the question was that I was looking to profile a bunch of different English football teams, right? From all the levels of English football. And the English football, like league is shaped like a pyramid, right? And the Premier League's at the top, but I was going to go from the top to the base of the pyramid. And so the question was like, what ties all of these like teams together? He's like, you need the thread, right? You need something to connect them all. So I sat on that question for like for those 24 hours. And I just obsessed over it. And this is like back to Jessie. This is where you like lock in.
The pain cave.
You get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I didn't think about anything other than that question. What ties these together? And, I found a thread that I think that I would want, right?
Perfect.
And so when the next agent asked that, and I said, the thing that ties them all together is relegation, right? Is relegation and promotion.
Yep.
And so, and that's the natural segue for me to say relegation. And that's when I was like, dude, I'm in a room full of shovels. I'm like relegated as a writer and as a person. Like, this is where I am. And so that's when the thread all of a sudden like tied it together. And then that agent signed me. And then that agent signed a book deal with idea. So like, yeah. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's fun.
That's like the perfect way to end this. It's almost like a little teaser.
Yeah.
For when you can come back and talk about your book next year.
I can't wait.
But so I know Jessie said it's the pain cave. Yours is the shovel room. That's what it is now.
I love it.
Where are you? I'm in
That'll
the
be
shovel
the title
room.
of your autobiography.
There you go.
Yeah. Room full of shovels.
Yeah, room for sure.
Yeah.
Todd Smith, I could talk to you all day long. I love your stories. I love that you and I have become friends after our initial For the Hockey Strong.
Yeah.
He'll sometimes text me, Jim, things like just a random like beat up hockey player, like this is Hockey Strong.
Yeah.
I like that meme where they're all like, they all have arrows through them. Like they look like Vikings and it says hockey player say, I'm not hurt. But you are talented and I enjoy your books and I look forward to your third.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
From the shovel room.
Yeah. This is like such a treat for me to be standing between you two or sitting between you two and you as well. I'd never take these opportunities lightly. So thank you.
Well, we'll have you back.
Thanks for being here. And I love the stories. Now I'm going to have to read your books.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah.